Hi everyone and welcome for this how to paint Khorne's demon. So you can use this kind of tutorial on every kind of demon. And thanks again for watching my tutorial. Don't hesitate to like and comment if you have any question or any suggestion. Let's go for the paint. The first step is to prime all the miniatures in red. It's going to be more easy after that to paint the next step because all our base will be down. After that, I use some black with my airbrush to push on every hand some black. It's always better to create a nice beast effect. And if you see the different kind of tutorial I show, I make that kind of things a lot of time just to show a more bestial effect. Take care by using this to let the paint totally dry before the next step. After that, I come back with some orange to push my first highlights on the shoulder and on the different part who takes the more light. If you don't know which part takes the more light, don't hesitate to put your miniatures just under the light and see where the reflection of light is most important. In another way, just push the light in the parts you want to be sure that people, when they are going to see your miniature, is going to focus and see more this part than the other. When the paint is totally dry, I come back and make it again to have a more strong orange on some few parts. Focus always on the smaller and smaller surfaces to create the degradé. So don't hesitate after that to come back with some contrasts blood-red paint, this time very diluted, and push it on all the miniatures just to create a better transition. Take care about the dilution. You need to dilute a lot if you use contrast paint because it's very covering. If you don't have any contrast paint, you can use the ink from Army Painter, the blood ink from Army Painter, that's work too. And if you don't have both of them, so you can use directly some red very diluted and push it on all the miniatures. You can start to preserve some surfaces, but you are going to see we are going to make this same step a lot of time. Now I come back with my airbrush again with some red just to push more strong red on some different parts. Always move your miniatures to be sure to reach the surfaces you want. For example, if I want to reach the back, I'm going to move my miniatures as you can see in the good direction, just to be sure don't reach the surface with the more highlight. Take care with airbrush because it's always the same things. If you don't let the paint totally dry, you are going to, with the air we are going on the paint, you are going to push this color. I come back with some orange and to push again my highlights on the different surfaces. Once again, don't hesitate to focus on smaller and smaller surfaces to create your transition in the better way. Now I start with some white, always with airbrush on my different hands. The part who was previously in black is going to take a little bit white just to be sure to have some highlight on this part too. When I paint this kind of model for my army or for any other commission work for an army, I am going to paint 3 to 5 different miniatures in the same time. That lets me the time to let the paint totally dry before the different steps. So I push my white on one miniatures and after I make it on other one, and when I come back on the first one, so the paint is totally dry. So that can be a good exercise for you if you have sometimes if you don't let the time to paint to dry, so you can make it on different miniatures, so you are going to take more time. That can be a good solution. Now I come back with some contrast ink again with some gray, ideally with some medium on all my black parts to create and to have more contrast in the paint. If you don't have contrast color, you can use some dark tone from Army Painter, that works too. And if you don't have this, you can always use some black. You can dilute a lot and push it on every hand, as you can see. Back again with some contrast red, and I take care about pushing it only on the shadow parts. When I make that, I will be sure that I'm not going to touch my highlight, just to be sure my transition will be as perfect as we can. So I continue like that, and I'm going to let the paint dry once again and make it on the different model. Now I start my step with my brush, so that is going to be the last step with my brush. So take care, as you can see, using the same orange with brush is going to have a more contrast effect. So focus on some very few parts, some point of highlight for example, and just push your color to be sure to have more intensity and more contrast on your red color. As you can see, that just some few points I push on the more highlights, like the head for example, and I'm going to push this color to create my contrasts on the red. After that step, I'm going to mix a little bit orange and white to put once again a little bit highlights. So take care to have sufficient large surfaces of orange to can come back inside and push again some highlight. The most important things once again is to focus on every time reaching a smaller and smaller surfaces to create your transition. So that's a very important step, and as you can see, the last point of orange and white is going to reach a very small surfaces, but that's going to create the most contrast we can with our brush. Using airbrush, ink and brush is the best way to have a very efficient paint, to don't lose any time and to can focus with your brush on the most important part. I come back for this last step with some white directly. So I'm going to push every edges in white on the foot, but on all the different end parts to create my contrasts on this part. As you can see, I use the side of my brush to use the sculpture as a support to my paint. So I'm going to push very lightly with my side of brush my white on some very few and small parts, and I don't try to target one point. I just have to push my side of brush on a very small part. If you see that your white is too much large, so you can directly make a wash of black if you need it, to clean the surfaces and come back with a little bit white on a very smaller surfaces. That's always a good exercise and a good practice, so don't hesitate to make that. That can be a good solution to have better skills in painting minis. I come back with some black now, just to create better transition, to have a better contrast in my different elements. As you can see, sometimes my base coat in red is always present, so I can come back with some black to be sure with a small layer and light layer to erase this red part, and on the end and on every part I come back with some black to create a more thin line, for example, and a better transition. After that, I come back with some turquoise and white to have a better opacity in my color, and I come back on the ace to be sure I have something very contrasted with this turquoise, and focus your attention on the head. After that, I come back with some turquoise pure on the end to create more and more contrast on my mini. And here is the results on 5 different models. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't hesitate to like, comment, and support me on Patreon if you can, so I can continue to make money with my arts, and that will be very helpful for me. Thank you very much, and see you soon for the next tutorial. Bye!